Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLuga. Thanks so much for tuning in here on Sunday, December 1st. Jacksonville Jaguars, they just fell to the Houston Texans by a final score of 23-20. Obviously, the final score in this game really isn't the story. Trevor Lawrence going down with the injury. We're going to have to talk about that. We're going to have to talk about the actual football game, the implications for the rest of the season, for the future, all that good stuff we're going to get into here on this game recap. Really appreciate y'all tuning in, supporting the channel. Super thankful for everybody out there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that like button. You can also subscribe. So Trevor Lawrence, the hit, man. You hate to, it's tough to talk about that hit without saying things that may be hyperbolic. I don't know. That was one of the dirtiest hits I've ever seen in football, especially in the NFL. I cannot remember off the top of my head, and I know there have been absolutely, and it's a different game today, right? I mean, we've seen Donovan Darius take people's heads off, right? But different game. And when the quarterback goes to slide, at that moment, the play is over. And Azeez Al-Shaair, what he did was egregious. It was obviously a penalty, but it was beyond that. Like, to me, this is a player that needs to have a meaningful suspension. And this is not to like hurt the Texans or anything, but there needs to be an example made of this situation. That's unacceptable. Unacceptable on a NFL field. Should be unacceptable in any field, anywhere. But on an NFL field, the NFL needs to make an example of this type of play. Because when a quarterback is sliding, feet first, they give themselves up, and you intentionally take your forearm, your elbow that has a big brace on it, and you hit that quarterback in the head as hard as you can, as the quarterback has clearly, he made that decision to lead with that part of his body after he saw Trevor Lawrence declare for the slide. There's no question about that. And that's why you saw benches clear. That's why you saw ejections. And that's why, it's an ugly situation. And two division rivals, right? Teams that have played a lot of football games against each other. The Texans have owned the rivalry for much of its existence. Obviously, last year it was 1-1. And so we've seen a little bit more competitiveness lately. Both of these games this year close, but the Texans did sweep. But you see benches clear, and you see the Jaguars, the rest of the team going to bat for their quarterback there. It's what you want to see, but you obviously don't want to see what happened before that. So Trevor Lawrence leaves the game with the concussion. Clearly, incredibly hard hit. He was on the ground for a minute. It did not look great. He was able to, get up though, and look like he was all there a little bit. Obviously, he's going to have to take some time to recover from the concussion and see what happens there. But you've also got the shoulder injury. And so I know there was some folks that didn't want him to play in this game. And I wouldn't say I was against the idea of Trevor Lawrence not playing the rest of the year with the shoulder, because the shoulder, it's an injury that they hadn't ruled out potentially getting surgery. But in my opinion, from a coaching standpoint, from an internal decision-making standpoint with the Jaguars, if Trevor Lawrence is healthy enough to play, cleared medically, and it's a pain tolerance deal, which Doug Peterson has said it is, obviously Trevor Lawrence wouldn't have played if he wasn't cleared to play medically, and the player is cleared medically, the player wants to play, and mathematically you're not eliminated, even though for all intents and purposes, absolutely you were. But internally, they were sitting there telling themselves, hey, if we can win this football game, we can give ourselves a chance down the stretch to just see what happens at the end. Because stranger things have happened than an 8-9 football team making the playoffs, right? But so there were fans out there that said, he just shouldn't be playing in this game. it's tough for me to sit here and say like what the benefit of him playing was besides just like showing his leadership, his toughness, giving fans something to watch, right? Because again, I do think that this game, even if the Jaguars won the game and all that, you're still a 3-9 football team. You're still, in all likelihood, not going to make the playoffs. Not even a sniff the playoffs. So yeah, I mean, I see both sides of it, but at the same time, if a player wants to play, if a player is medically cleared, if a team is still mathematically in contention, it's hard for me to sit here and blame the coaching staff or anyone involved for allowing Trevor Lawrence to play. And then there's the fact that that injury had nothing to do with his prior injury, right? Getting the concussion on a slide where a player just makes one of the dirtiest cheap shots you've ever seen, that has nothing to do with the previous injury. So it is what it is in that regard. It's tough, but I will say this. Now that the Jaguars are a 10-loss team, I do think Trevor Lawrence should not be playing the rest of the year in all likelihood. Like, you have to recover from this concussion, and who knows what that will entail, how long that will take. We've seen people come back from concussions quickly. We've seen it take longer. Who knows, right? And then you've also got the shoulder to deal with. I think that before he steps back out on that football field, again, because of where the Jaguars are in the season, he should be fully healthy. And whether that entails surgery or just letting it heal up on its own, I'm not sure. I'm not a doctor, obviously, but he should not step out on that football field again this year until he's fully healthy. And if it happens to not be this year, I think that's okay. Right? So that's kind of where I'm at with the Trevor Lawrence situation. The actual football game, we've got to talk about that as well. And then, again, kind of where this team's at moving forward. But first, I want to remind y'all to check out Underdog Fantasy for Pick'em and a whole lot more. You can use code Duval Daily, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash Pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit on their easy-to-use mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com. This season, Underdog is running a special promo or bonus almost every single day. Like Profit Boost, you can pump up your winnings in just a tap when you apply the boost to eligible entries. There were a lot of options. Jags and Texans. Hopefully you made the right calls. Maybe a little BTJ action. Maybe. That's Underdog Fantasy. Promo code Duval Daily to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona 1-800-NEXT-STEP. That's 1-800-639-8783 or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. So, yeah, football game. Offense did not start out super strong with Trevor Lawrence out there. He made a couple nice plays, certainly, but he missed a couple throws on one drive to end the drive. It was a second down and then a third down, and then you had to punt. So he missed a couple throws and then had the interception as well. So he didn't look super sharp early. And then, obviously, what happened, and he missed the rest of the game. But after he did leave, I thought, kudos to Mac Jones, Parker Washington, the offensive line, Brian Thomas Jr., and offensive play calling. I think you just saw a little bit more creativity than you're used to from the offensive play calling, like getting Brian Thomas Jr. the ball the way they did, kind of motioning him into the backfield and then pitching it. I thought that was creative. I thought the Evan Ingram little screen was nice, even though it wasn't like a big gainer or anything. I just liked seeing it. The little tight end screen up the middle of the offensive line. And then I thought you saw some more route concepts than you're used to seeing from the Jaguars offense. So there was just some stuff that I was encouraged by. Obviously, I don't think that this changes my opinion on the coaching staff as a whole. And if you've been paying attention, you know what that is. But I don't think that the Jaguars coaching staff offensively had a poor game at all. I thought they did a pretty good job. Again, Parker Washington, not perfect, but yes, did make a lot of plays. Some very impressive plays. Mac Jones, not perfect, but his best game as a Jaguar by far and made some impressive plays. Offensive line did a pretty good job. Brian Thomas Jr., again, like everybody here, not perfect, but he made some huge plays as well, and almost had he had he had the touchdown. He almost had a touchdown earlier on that same drive where just couldn't quite haul that one in the end zone. It would have been a tough catch certainly, but he continues to impress just with his speed and athleticism and quickness, his game changing playmaking ability. So you saw some things you like to see on the offensive side. It was not quite enough because defensively, while you had some big performances and some strong moments, I thought for the most part Josh Hines Allen played great. You know, Trayvon Walker came out big early, had a big sack on C.J. Stroud. It was really kind of the usual suspects for the Texans against the Jaguars, and this was Joe Mixon's first game, big game against the Jaguars for the Texans. But Joe Mixon, go back and watch his career against the Jaguars. He has feasted on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Took a little while to get going today, but he had himself a day. And Nico Collins is, obviously Jaguar killer this year. He's been fantastic against the Jaguars. Nico was just pretty unstoppable, and it was a combination of different things. Tyson Campbell, he fell on one play where Nico Collins was able to pick up a big chunk gain, and then he's just a difficult cover one on one. His size, speed, athleticism, his development as a route runner in the NFL, he's been fantastic. He had 8 catches for 119 yards, so yeah, tough to contend with that. And then Joe Mixon 20 carries for 101 yards. C.J. Stroud made some clutch plays as well, being able to maneuver the pocket, move around, make some tough throws on the run, off balance, off platform. Overall, not like a horrible day from the Jaguars defense, certainly, but not quite enough when you're without your QB1, when you have so many injuries on the offensive side of the ball. To your receivers, right? I mean, Christian Kirk's still not playing, obviously out for the season. And, the run game for the Jaguars probably should have leaned on it a little bit more than they did, but it wasn't great. Situationally, I get why you didn't do it more, but it was just a tough game. Tough to win these types of games when you don't have Trevor Lawrence. But kudos to those guys we talked about offensively, and then defensively. I thought the linebackers did a really good job. Maybe struggled a little bit later with some gap filling against Joe Mixon, but this is not an effort that you're going to be like completely pissed about leaving that game. What you're going to be pissed about is, Azeez Al-Shaair taking the Jaguars season and pretty much thrown it in the trash thanks to and it might have already, for all intents and purposes, been done, as we know, but any opportunity the Jaguars had to try to make this a season here in the back few games, Azeez Al-Shaair put that to bed by performing one of the dirtiest hits I've ever seen. So, very unfortunate. For all intents and purposes, this season is a wrap. Again, for me, I've said it for a few weeks. I think that they were dead in the water, even if Trevor was able to come back and be healthy. But the Jaguars are now a 10-loss football team. The Texans are an 8-win team. So you can't win your division. The Texans already have clearly, eliminated you from that, because at 10 losses, best you can be is 7-10. Texans already have 8 wins, right? So you can't catch them in the division. The current 7 seed in the AFC already has 7 wins, so you're not catching anybody. You're not sneaking in. You're not backdooring. Again, if you're able to finish the season 8-9, that is a reasonable possibility. But as a 10-loss team, it's just not going to happen. The season is pretty much over with. I know you have to finish it out, and you have to go out there and try to stack solid performances. But it's now at a point where, look, Doug Peterson is going to have a losing season. He's going to have a season in which the Jaguars have no chance to make the playoffs. Trent Baalke, you can say same thing, obviously. And I don't know how these two guys are able to hold on to their jobs with the Jaguars essentially now being eliminated. And I know they might not be officially eliminated yet from wild card contention, but they are eliminated from winning their division. They cannot win their division in 2024. And right now, they are in first place when it comes to the NFL draft, right? Pull up Tankathon. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, after falling to 2-10 with a win percentage of 167 and a strength of schedule of 495 and a 5-game losing streak at that, have the first overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft right now. Now, the Las Vegas Raiders are also 2-10. The New York Giants are 2-10. Both of those teams have stronger strengths of schedule, which puts the Jaguars ahead of them in draft order right now. So you've got that. The next closest team in terms of potentially stealing that number one pick is the Patriots. They're 3-10. They barely lost today, and they actually have a weaker strength of schedule. So they would be a threat to the Jaguars potentially if they finish with the same record to the Jaguars getting that first overall pick. And you want to finish with the first overall pick from a draft perspective. Obviously, no team wants the number one pick because of what it means about your previous season. But from a moving forward perspective, having the first overall pick gives you all the leverage in the draft. And even if this is a draft that doesn't feature quarterbacks like Caleb Williams or Drake May or Jaden Daniels, Shedeur Sanders could still be very attractive to some teams. Cam Ward could still be very attractive to some teams. There's a possibility if you have the number one overall pick that a team will want to move up for it. So you want to finish with the first overall pick at this point if you're a Jags fan. I don't see what winning games will do for you in any way, shape, or form after falling to 10 losses. So that'll do it for this recap. Again, we'll dive more into it throughout the week and obviously get some mock drafts going and talk about what's going on here with Trevor Lawrence and all that. Really appreciate y'all's support. Appreciate you tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like, comment, subscribe. Y'all try to have a good one.